to say that we are boterach b'Hashem, that we're trusting in Hashem. And he actually brought, the Chavot HaLevavot brought down psukim that mention how we have to put our complete trust in Hashem in everything that we do. Baruch HaGever asher yiftach b'Hashem. Blessed is the man that trusts in Hashem, right? V'haya Hashem yiftacho, and Hashem is his safeguard. And we mentioned, I believe last week, that somebody who puts his trust in Hashem, in other things, there is, so to speak, are removing the Emuna, the faith that they have, that they're able to get from Hashem directly. So we're not allowed to rely on other people. And we have to make sure not to, it says the pasuk, Al tiftechu b'ntivim. You should not trust in those who are generous. A person has to put his complete trust in Hashem. But what about people who help us, right? What about there are people that we go through life and there are people that we have to depend on to help us? Whether we go to the pharmacist and we ask the pharmacist to help us, or whether we go to, where we're in school, if there's a boss that we have to rely on or a colleague that we have to rely on for help or assistant or a rabbi, right? So what is that? How come he's saying that to put trust in people? So really it's complete trust. Of course we know that person has the ability maybe to help us on a certain level, but ultimately who is the one that's giving that person? That person's really a shaliach, is a messenger. Who is giving him that ability to be able to help us? None other than Hashem. And so too, we also spoke about how even when there are times that the person is not being helped, or if a person's not being so helpful and not being so nice, or getting us upset, that's also a shaliach from Hashem, right? There are times that Hashem puts us in certain situations with certain people, and that's in order to test us, to see how we're going to react. Are we going to be patient? Are we going to be calm? Are we going to be upset? Are we going to lose our temper, right? With our children, with our spouses, with our co-workers, wherever it is. And sometimes we think, oh, look what he did to me. Oh, I can't believe she did that to me. Oh, and we get all upset. But really, we're not supposed to get upset because Hashem made that person be in that situation where you're not able to get what you needed from that person. Now let's see how you're going to react. And really, everything, even shidduchim, we know and we see this so clearly. We think we're going to call that shadchan, we're going to call this shadchan, and he's out of town, and it wasn't the right time, and I forgot the number, and who was the one that told me? And all of a sudden, when it's the right one, you know the number, you know who it was, you know who to call, you go directly to the source. And what is that? Because it was the right time. Hashem wanted that you shouldn't know at that time. It wasn't the right time. And how many times do we hear the shidduchim that are read, this was read a few months ago or a year ago and it didn't work? Because that wasn't the right time. Because Hashem didn't want you to meet that right shaliach, to get you to that person. Because it's supposed to be a time when every person is supposed to find their zivug. And that is called the Sha'at Tovah Mutzlachat, right? That's the special time, just like we say Sha'at Tovah Mutzlachat when a mother is about to give birth. We give her a bracha, she should give birth, but Sha'at Tovah, in a good time, Umutzlachat, a successful time, right? That it should be good for her and for the baby. It's not just what we think is good. It'll be very good. We have a scheduled C-section. It'll be very good if you schedule it, after work when my husband's available to be able to be with me, or when I finish doing my cooking, or my kids come to have a babysitter, that'll be very good. That'd be very nice. Yes, we could do that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the right time. Right, and of course every labor has its time. If a person to be in the hospital for hours on end, or chas v'chalila, there are complications that we don't think about and that happen. Lo aleinu, which shouldn't happen to anyone, but these things happen. So there's a right time. Just kind of thinking of a story very quickly with regards to the right time for shidduchim. So there's a story given over that there's a couple under the chuppah, and the chatan is supposed to put the tabat, the ring, on her finger, and the ring falls, and everyone's like, ooh. And then they pick it up, and he's about to do it again. Harei at, right? About to say it, and the ring falls again. And then the ring fell the third time. Everyone's thinking, what are you thinking?
It's not meant to be.
Not meant to be. At the right time.
Yeah. So.
What's wrong? Something's happening. The rabbi stopped, and he said, everyone's thinking.
He needs glasses.
I like that. He needs glasses. I like that one. Everyone's thinking, not a good sign, bad omen, right? Not a good thing. So the rabbi spoke up and said, that's right. He said, he wants you to know. And then the next time he put it on, it went on. And I want you to know, he said, when the Chatan put on that ring the first time, in Shamayim, it was not the right time for this couple to get married. There is, remember we said last week, L'chol zman va'et, there's time for everything. And there's a sha'ah tova u'mutzlachat. So in Shamayim, we don't even understand what another minute is in Shamayim, right? Another minute for that chatan to put that ring on, or for something to drop. You know, when you put your hand in your pocket and you want to take out a penny, and you get, well, there's not really pennies here, but a toonie and you get a loonie, right? So then you're like, oh, and then you have to put your hand back again and take it out, or search through your pocketbook with a million things and you can never find the change inside, right? Like me. So what happens there? So Hashem says, the Chazal tell us that that's actually a nisayon. That's actually a test from Hashem. That's a test? Like, what's the big deal? Yeah, because you didn't get what you wanted to get right away, right? You had to work a little harder to be able to find it. So that is a form of a nisayon. It's a form of a test. How are you going to react to it, right? Some people will go and get all upset. It took them so many times to get out the change, and they'll start huffing and puffing and maybe saying not such nice things, right? Or you could start saying, I should have put it in the other pocket, and I shouldn't have done that, I could have done that, right? Or you could just say, okay, Me'at Hashem, I'll put my hand back in and I'll just take it out. So it's a nisayon to see how are we going to take to these things. So the Chavot al says we can't put our trust in other people fully. We have to fully put our trust in Hashem and know that even those people that give us what we need are shlichim, are really the messengers of Hashem. He even says further that we think that we can trust the laws of nature, right? Oftentimes, how many times we said last week, weather, right? We look at the weather and it looks so nice, and then we go outside and it's pouring. Or they say it's going to pour and it's a beautiful day, and I always call them Nevi'ei Sheker, right? They're false prophets because they don't know what they're talking about, right? They're just basing it on the laws of nature. Nature in Hebrew, there's no such word as nature in Hebrew. The word for nature in Hebrew is called teva, right? And if we look at the word teva, the gematria of the word teva is the same gematria, the numerical value of it is the same numerical value as Haelokim, Hashem's name. Because there's no such thing as nature. Hashem is in control of everything in nature, so to speak, what we think, right? And we could hear these forecasters, and they can predict, and they tell us that there's going to be a storm, and it's going to come. And remember the whole storm, there was a whole business, the last storm, they thought in Miami it's going to destroy everything, and everybody has to leave. My parents were there, Baruch Hashem. They didn't get, there was no destruction. Yeah, a little bit of things flew around, Of course, Baruch Hashem saved them, sorry. You have to leave. Of course, you have to listen to them, because what can we do? Although there were Rabbanim that, they have to listen to the Rabbanim. The Rabbanim said, it's okay, you could stay certain places because they saw what was happening, and there are certain places they told them to leave. So we really believe in Rabbanim. We have to trust Torah. That Torah comes first. Even with the doctors, when the doctor says that you have to do a certain procedure, you should never go into the procedure without consulting with your Rav. Because sometimes Rabbanim know better, and sometimes they'll tell you, ask the doctor, because they don't know better. But a Rav can see sometimes things or know certain things that, the doctors are taking precautions, precautionary measures, We should put him on, on oxygen, or we should do this and we should do that, just in case. But we don't do that. We're botech b'Hashem. And that's why, especially here, they're very quick to pull the plug on people who are not able to breathe on their own. And we don't believe in that. We can't just take somebody else's life, even if it means that person's not going to survive so long, and they're going to need the oxygen for a longer period of time to survive. Who are we to be God? We're not God. You know that every minute that a person is breathing in this world, he's able to be mitaken, to fix so many things in his, whatever it is in his life. So many midot or certain tikkunim, we don't even know. Certain things that he has to fix for his neshama, to be able to go up to Shemaim, to have a clean slate. Even the fact that he's just sitting in a hospital bed and suffering that he can't breathe properly is also a test, is also an nisayon. And even that, the neshama has to go through this to be able to go through this hardship, whatever it is, to be able to fix something. Any time that there's suffering in this world, it's not for naught. There's a reason. And Hashem is the one that we have to trust in, not in nature and not in doctors and not in medicine. We have to believe that Hashem is kol yachol. I'm not saying not to go to doctors. I'm not saying not to take medicine. But we have to know when we're doing something that really our first priority is to put trust in Hashem. There's actually even a pasuk you're supposed to say. I don't know if it's a pasuk, maybe it's a chazal. That you're supposed to say before taking a medicine, and that is Yeheh esek zeh li l'refuah. That this, it's literally business. This thing that I'm taking, this pill that I'm about to take, should be for me as a refuah. Yehi ratzon, you're saying to Hashem that this pill should help me to have a refuah, to help me have a healing. It's not the pill that's healing us. What's healing us? Hashem. That's bitachon b'Hashem. Even when I'm taking the medicine, even when I'm going to the doctor, even when I'm listening to people who have the what's the letters afterwards? MD, whatever, PSYD, whatever the letters are, A B C D elemental P, whatever the letters are after his name, that doesn't mean anything, right? The biggest degrees, the biggest doctors, they've seen miracles happen, and they say, I believe. Now I believe there's a God. Before they didn't believe, but now they see open miracles when things happen to Jews, and they say, wow, okay, there has to be a God because this doesn't make sense. And there are a lot of stories like this. So here, this is what the Chavot HaLevavot is saying. It says, he brings on a pasuk. We say this, let's see if you remember. I don't know if did we mention this. V'yadata hayom v'ashavota elavavecha. Did we mention it last week? V'yadata hayom, you should know today. V'ashavota elavavecha, and you should take it to your heart. Anybody know the continuation? Ki Hashem hu Ha'elokim b'shamayim mimal ve'al ha'aretz mitachat en od. Where do we say that one? Aleinu. Very good. So that's where we say that there's no other God, right? Even in the heaven or on the earth below. And this is also showing that everything we see in this world is really Yad Hashem. There's no such thing as imagination. Rabbi Tatz was here, Rabbi Kiva Tatz was here, and he said there's certain words in the Hebrew language that don't exist. There are certain words that don't exist in the Torah, not in the Hebrew language, I should say. In the Hebrew language, it exists because they take it from the English. Like television is televizia, there's no such thing as television, right? Or radio is radio, or komunikacja is communication, right? But there are certain words that are not in the Torah. I think one of them he said was safek, doubt, because we know there's no such thing as doubt. The Torah is emet. Everything's emet, emes, right? And there's no such thing as doubt. Yes, there is such a word, but not in the Torah. And the reality of words is only from the Torah. That's why it's called Lashon HaKodesh. We're not talking about Ivrit, the spoken language that we speak, because that's made up from secular people. I think it was Ben Yehuda, right, that made up the Hebrew language, and it's completely secular. But Lashon HaKodesh, the holy tongue of the Torah, certain words don't exist. So, getting back to what we're saying, so he's saying that here, in heaven above and on earth below, there's nothing other than Him. Even if we see things it's in our imagination and we imagine it, it's only Hashem's word that we're seeing. Like it says, En od milvado. There's none other than Him. There's no other power. And if you keep on saying this, he says, if you keep on saying this long enough, it gradually becomes part of your personality. And initially he said, what do you mean? Like, saying it is enough? Shouldn't you be believing it? Is saying enough? Like, if I just say, okay, I believe in Hashem, there's nothing by Hashem. Does that mean that I believe it? Because I'm saying it? Anyone? Does it mean that I believe because I'm saying something? Do I believe everything I say? No. Right? We hope that we think about what we say, and maybe at some point we'll believe it. We don't believe everything. If we believed everything we said, then we would be davening 24/7. Because really, if we believe in our koach of tefillah, which we spoke about, then we would constantly be talking to Hashem. Because Hashem says that when you ask, you're going to be answered. And tefillah olechet rekam, there's no tefillah that's gone unanswered. It's just a matter of when it's answered, or for who it's answered, right? Or for what it's answered. But there's no tefillah that goes to waste. So if we really thought about that, we would constantly be talking to Hashem, which is something we have to get used to. Is talking to Hashem is tefillah. It's not just opening up Siddur and saying the words that Chazal wrote down. But here he's saying that if we're saying something, is that going to be ingrained because we're saying it? So he says the higher levels is to say something and to believe it, right? Really the higher level is to believe it, he says. This is the Chabot HaLevavot. Right? He's speaking of a sincere belief and conviction that Hashem is the only one who helps. But we have to know that we don't arrive at that so quickly. It takes such great work to be able to reach this level. So at least the beginning is to what? Train ourselves to say the words. Because when we say something, we spoke about this last week, now it's coming back to me. We say it, where does it come from? We thought about something, right? There's a thought that came to our mind. We had to have kavanah. And if you have kavanah and you're saying it, then you're going to act it, then you're going to believe it, you're going to impress it upon your heart. So of course we're not on the level to just believe, even though on a certain level we have Emuna pshuta, we have simple belief, right? That we believe that there is a Hashem. We believe that Hashem can do everything and anything. But do we constantly believe that? Like when things don't go my way? No, right? We're like, oh, why didn't I do that better? Why didn't I go there? And why didn't I tell him that? And why didn't I, right? We're always doubting ourselves. I just heard yesterday there was this Shabbat was an amazing, amazing Shabbat. There was the Beis Yaakov convention here in Toronto. It was hosted by the families here in the school. And it was such a kiddush Hashem. It was such a semblance of sanctification of Hashem's name. Because there's so many girls from all around the States and all around, I think even other countries maybe, that are here from different schools to represent Bet Yaakov, what Sarah Schneer started so many years ago. It's a dream that came true, and look how it's so amazing. They made a list. One of the exhibits was a whole thing of Sarah Schneera, and behind it was the list of schools, and there were columns of different yeshivot and Bet Yaakovs, schools around the world. And it was so amazing, like one woman's dream, of just starting a school for girls. And look today what there is. There's conventions every year. This year we're zocha to host it. And it was so beautiful. I walked in to the school last night. They had for the mothers a Malava Malka, and they had different principals speaking, and mechanchot speaking, and there also happened to have been a social worker that was speaking. How did I get to this point?
Beit Yaakov.
Yeah, no, I started saying something.
Think it. If you think it, you make it a reality.
Oh yeah, from the
yeah.
thoughts.
Okay, that'll come to me.
So finish the rest of the story.
I'm going to tell you. Yeah, I'm going to tell you. So first of all, it's tremendous kiddush Hashem. After they spoke, a lot of the mothers were like, we're supposed to go pick up our girls, but we really didn't want to go pick them up. We really wanted to check out the scene. And the girls, in the high school, because they were having a lot more fun than we were, they had a cantata, like a whole play, and then they had a kumsitz, they were singing together, and then they had dancing and music, and we're like, we want to be part of this too. I met other mothers, and they're like, yeah, I came here to dance, I want to be part of this. You can imagine a room. It was like so much heat in that room, because there was like 1,000 girls and women, teachers and mechanchot, and girls dancing and just being sameach and be'achta together. It was such a beautiful kiddush Hashem, and I just it was just so nice to see. It's so nice to experience that, and for the girls as well. It was such a beautiful, experience for them to work on this, to be able to set up the school. There's going to be a public display that you can see, a day where you can go and view the school. Tomorrow and Tuesday the school's closed, so there are hours for men, fathers and men to view it. And on Wednesday they're having viewing hours, I believe 6:30 to 7:30, and then they're having a concert with a band, which our famous Galia is going to be playing the flute. My daughter's playing guitar, and there are plenty of other women that are also joining in, and girls, different instruments. And they're going to show, I think, a video of the whole convention and how the planning and what took place when the girls actually came. So it's going to be very special. And it was amazing just to see the exhibits. I mean, such talent. Just you walk into the building, the first thing, they did like hanging flowers that they made. They made the flowers out of paper, and they were hanging with like leaves from the ceiling. And then there was like a huge round display of a clock that said the pasuk, which is the theme was Ani yashena v'libi er, which is a pasuk from Shir HaShirim, I am asleep and my heart is awake. And that was the whole theme of this weekend. And inside of there's like a clock, and the letters are around. I can't even explain it to you. It was so beautiful. That's just one. And there are different exhibit rooms that they had a theme for each room. Like there was a chesed room, there's a room to talk about Gashmius and Ruchnius, so they showed like distractions of a telephone, and they showed different things. They made like a wall of, as if you're walking into a cell phone with like different apps on the cellophane, like a wall, and you're walking into. I can't even describe it to you. It was just incredible. I walked in, I was like, and every room was like, who did this? Like, could it be just girls like thinking of these things and putting it together? I asked them, like, did you get it from somewhere? Like, no, we thought in our sleep, and we thought in when we were eating, when we were showering. We were thinking all day long how to do this for months on end. So it was so beautiful that these girls were able to express their talents and be ba'achta together and be able to welcome other people, from other towns and meet different types of girls. It was just really, really beautiful. So what was my point in starting this was I listened to something that was said that...
The social worker.
Yeah, the social worker was saying something. Okay, I'm going to skip it. It'll come to me. Ezrat Hashem. So we have to actually... He says, we're talking about saying the words, right? Making sure that we say the words. Why? Because when we say something, we make an impression upon ourselves. That we have to actually say the words to be able to hear it, to be able to absorb it. And that's what's going to bring us to be able to understand really what it means. And that's going to bring us to be able to actually feel what it means, especially when we're going to have to be put to the test. When things happen in our life that show us that we have to be reliant on Hashem. And that's why it's so important to say it. So it's not enough just to think it. And you have these Jews that are less affiliated, and they'll say, Ani ma'amin balev, I'm a believer in my heart, that's what they'll say. I'm really a believer. A lot of Israelis, they'll say that to you when you go up to them, they see that you're from, so they feel guilty a little bit, so they'll say, Ani gam ma'amin, I also believe, but I believe in my heart. It's not, you don't see it on me on the outside, right? He dresses like a complete secular Jew. So, oftentimes it's like I'll have a discussion with some of these people, some of them are actually my relatives, and I'm like, it's very good that you believe in your heart, but it has to be an action. You have to show it to Hashem. You have to show that you are a Jew. How are you different than somebody else that's dressed the same as you? It's not enough to say, oh, okay, I give tzedakah, I give charity, and I believe in my heart that there's a Hashem. But we have to actually say it. We have to daven. We have to say it. We have to act it. We have to walk around and look like it. Our whole being has to reflect this. And that's what we're here to learn about Emuna, because Emuna is not just, I believe, right? And Emuna is not, okay, we all have faith, we all have Emuna. But we have to strengthen that Emuna. We have to be able to connect with what that means, and to be able to constantly say, I believe in Hashem. So I want to play for you a song, and I want us to actually actualize what we're saying. How many of you heard of Rabbi Ephraim Waxman? Yes? Okay, so Rabbi Ephraim Waxman has a famous song, which is called, I Believe in Hashem. So I thought of playing it for you. I think I have it on here open. And then we could join along. Is that okay?
I trust in Hashem. There never is a moment when that I am alone, that I'm on my own.
I believe and I trust in Hashem. You could join for the
and
chorus.
I understand that He's holding my hand, and every step is perfectly planned. He's holding me tight, so I'll be alright. I believe and I trust in Hashem. Come on, I believe in Hashem. I trust in Hashem.
You'll be quiet, you'll hear it. It must have been doing something with somebody there, so they're laughing.
I trust in Hashem. There never is a moment when that I'm on my own, that I am alone.
I believe and I trust in Hashem.
'Cause I understand that He's holding my hand, and every step is perfectly planned. He's holding me tight, so I'll be alright.
I believe and I trust in Hashem. Isn't it beautiful?
Okay, one more time with the other nose already.
Should we try one more time together?
I
Believe in Hashem. I trust in Hashem. There never is a moment when
that I am alone, that I'm
on my own. I believe and I trust in Hashem.
because I understand that He's
Holding my hand.
and every step is perfectly planned. He's holding me tight, so I'll be alright. I believe and I trust in Hashem. One day a ship was sailing.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it because it's a little long. It's about like 9.5 minutes. I can put it up. We have a chat, and I can forward it if anybody wants. You can hear it, or you can look it up also online. It's there. So I think it's important to say this. I believe in Hashem. I trust in Hashem. Enod milvado, yishtabach shemo. All these words. It's so important. Also in our homes, our children have to hear it. Our grandchildren, our spouses, co-workers. People have to hear us talking like this because that's what a Jew is. Constantly having the words of Torah on our mouth. It says Vashinantam levanecha. You should make your children, you should give it over to your children. What's Vashinantam? Shinantam means to tell it to them again and again. Leshanin, like shnayim. Shnayim is two, double, right? Vashinantam levanecha. And and another explanation of leshanin means lechaded. I believe it's Rashi who says to sharpen it. It's not enough to just say, okay, I already said it, that's it. Make it even sharper, make it even better, right? Leshaper, to make it even beautify it, to make it better. And that's with everything. And especially in this, we have to try to work on this and accustom ourselves to say it. And that's what Rabbi Victor Miller explains here with the Chavot HaLevavot, is that when we say it, it's going to start being ingrained. Vashevota levavecha, right? That you're going to impress it on your heart. And it actually brings me to a story that I just heard, and everyone knows this famous story of Rabbi Akiva, right? Rabbi Akiva, when he started, he wasn't Rabbi Akiva. He was a simple Jew. He was Akiva. And he was a poor Jew. And he went and he saw this rock. And he noticed that the rock had a dent in it. And he said, 1 second, how does this rock that's solid have dent in it? And he noticed that there was water dripping. And the water was dripping on it. And he's like, what? Water? The water has the power to make a dent in a rock? Because we know over time, right, when the water drips and drips, another drip and another drip, it helps to make a dent in the rock. And he saw this and he said, oh. And that's how he came to believe in Hashem even more and to come close to Hashem and to be choser b'tshuva. And that's when he started learning, and he slowly became Rabbi Akiva. He got married, of course, to Rachel. We know, famous story, Rachel. She was the wife of a very, very rich, wealthy man, and she gave up everything to go marry. I'm sorry, thank you. Daughter of a very wealthy man, thank you. And she went and married. She left everything to go and marry Akiva because she saw the potential in him. And he became Rabbi Akiva. We know that there were 24,000 Talmidim that had passed away, that we mourn, right, during the time of Sfirat HaOmer. But he had many more Talmidim because when he came to her, right, and she said, he could stay even longer, and he went back for another, 14 years, right? And he had many more Talmidim, and even though those Talmidim passed away, there were many famous rabbis. 5 famous rabbis, and one of those famous rabbis we all know is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who helped us to have the Zohar. The Zohar is the deep, deep aspects of Torah that we don't even understand when we read or learn Torah, and that's who came from Rabbi Akiva. Okay, so we see that Rabbi Akiva saw this. He saw the hole in the rock. Right? He saw the potential of what Torah can do to a person. And that's what we're doing when we're saying these words, when we're impressing it upon us, when we're learning this about again and again, and we're impressing it upon our heart. Hopefully it's going to seep in, and it's going to make a roshem, it's going to make an impression, just like it made an impression on that rock. And we're not a rock, right? Baruch Hashem, we're able to change. We're people that want to change, and we want to grow. So all the more so how much it's going to make a change in us when we're implementing these things that we're learning. So that's what the Chavot HaLevavot mentions. I wanted to say one other thing. I think this is something we already mentioned. Okay, so the next thing that the Chavot HaLevavot talks about is, I'm actually going to read it. It says, Ve'im yiftach al chochmato. So we're talking about relying on other people. There's another type of relying, of depending on something. And what is that? Relying on his own wisdom and his own skills, tachbulotav, right? Making strategies for success. Or relying on his physical strength, koach gufo. Or relying on his hishtadlut, his energetic efforts to carry out plans. or relying on, says all these things, he will toil in vain. Right? Yigal larik, in vain. And all the more so, he says, not only will he toil in vain, he says, ve'chalash kocho, even his strength is going to be weakened. V'tiktzar techbulato, and his stratagems will fall short, me'asik chavtzo, of achieving his desired goal. That all the work that he puts in will be for nothing. And how many times do we see that people think and they rely on their wisdom, they rely on their money, they rely on their whatever it is that they have, and they think, I'm going to be able to do this, right? I have the power to do this. It was my strength and my power that did this. We see that with 9/11. What happened with 9/11? 9/11 is the World Trade Center, right? Who would imagine that the World Trade Center is going to be wiped out completely, right? The big superpower in New York, the big place where all business is going to take place. And in a few minutes, look what happened. Everything crumbled, and all the people, how many tragedies came from that. And that's when Hashem, it was actually during the time of Aseret Yemei Tshuva. And I remember I think it was Rabbi Weinberger who spoke, or Moshe Weinberger, Shlita, and he said that he went there and he couldn't say anything but one word, which is the theme of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And he said, HaMelech. When he saw all this, he's like, only the King, Hashem. Only it's from Hashem. Hashem is in control. It's not the World Trade Center. It's not New York City. It's not the government, it's not whoever we think is in control. It's Hashem is in control. It's the Melech. He is our Melech. And then when we say Aleinu, by the way, one of the things, they say you're supposed to take upon yourself something, on Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur, you should make like a reckoning of what you're going to do for the next year. Doesn't mean we have to take upon ourselves like a million things. Chazal say we should try to take upon ourselves one thing. So I remember one year I decided that I want to say Aleinu inside the siddur. Can't tell you how hard it was. It's a very hard thing to do, because what are we doing at the end of davening? We're like ready to wrap it up. Okay, let's go. I'm out the door. I have a million things to do. But looking at the words, you know what the words mean? Aleinu l'shabach. That's also the theme. It's in the davening of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. That Hashem is our Melech, right? En od. It says there, en od. B'shamayim v'alaretz mitachat en od. In the heaven and the earth, there's none other than Hashem. And we have to believe that. And that's what we're saying it every single day. After every single tefillah, we say that there's none other than Hashem. And that's what we're saying here, is that we cannot rely on our own power. Right? And he says here, Victor Millers, now if young people hear this, he says, it's going to seem to them as just words. But if you look at history, right? If you look and investigate the history of the greatest and most successful people in the business world, if you look past and you see different empires, right? If you look at Yimach Shemo Hitler, what he thought he was going to do, control the world, right? If you look at all these things, and you're going to see how many of the world's magnates ended up in the poorhouse, ended up that we don't even know who they are today. How many empires, they don't exist today, right? So many who were on top rung of the ladder of success ended up on the bottom, not able to pay their debts. It's a remarkable statistic, but nobody talks about it. All we hear about is, look how much money he made, right? The top 10, the magazine's the top 10, wealthiest, man in America, or, all the, what is it called, the magazine?
Fortune magazine.
Fortune, thank you. The Fortune magazine that talks about all the big successful people. But if you really knew what went on in their homes and in their lives, and what went on for them to get to that place, and what they did to cheat, to lie, to whatever else, right? They relied on their own power, but really, is it their own power? And what eventually happened to them is never, ever even mentioned. And he actually brings a pasuk from Iyov. It says that Lochet chachamim be'armam. He traps wise men in their own cunning. They are undone by their clever tricks and schemes that they thought would make them wealthy. Of course, everybody knows what happened in the stock market more than once, right? How many people relied on their stocks going up and then lost all their money? There are wise guys who thought they'd make tremendous money, but in the end, they lost fortunes. If they had put their money in the bank and just waited for it to slowly, gradually accumulate, he says, they would have had a fortune by today. But they put all their money in stocks, in their belief that they're going to be able to do it. They know which stock's going to go up. They know what's going to make them that money, that whatever $1 million, right? They know. And they tell other people, right? Isn't that their job? All the people in the stock market to go and tell other people how they should invest their money. And then what happened? They all failed. And all the people that put their trust in them failed, right? They trusted in their own understanding and in their own wisdom, so to speak, right? And then look what happened. A person is not allowed to rely on himself. We have to believe in Hashem. Even when you're buying the lottery ticket. You buy the lottery ticket, what do you think? That you're the one who's going to pick the best numbers? You're going to choose the numbers? You know what you should say if you buy a lottery ticket? It's okay to buy a lottery ticket. You buy one ticket, right? Why? Because if you really believe that you're going to win, if Hashem wants you to win, how many tickets do you need to win?
One.
Only one. Only one ticket's going to win. That okay, there could be more than one person, you could share it. But they're going to be only the one that has the right numbers, right? You don't need more than one. I think there's a story like this of a rabbi. His Talmid bought a ticket for the lottery, and he said to him, Rabbi, is it okay if I buy a lottery ticket? You're like, am I allowed to do this? He said, sure. And he says to him, if I give you now $50,000, you're going to give me your lottery ticket? He's like, yeah, sure. He's like, then you don't really believe you're going to win. Right? Why are you buying the lottery ticket if you don't believe that Hashem wants you to win? Right? He's relying on the fact that, what? That maybe he's going to win. He's not really believing that he's going to win. So that's what it means, not to put your trust in your own and other people, and not to put your trust in your own understanding. And that's why we have Da'at Torah. That's why we have people to give us guidance in everything that we do. We should always ask a Sheila. We should always go to greater people to be able to help us, to be able to understand that it's not me, my own doing. It's not what I believe is going to make it happen, but rather it's what Hashem wills it to happen. I want to read to you our Vodah for this week from the Secret of Miraculous Salvation. So last week we spoke about Rachamim Gdolim, right? That Hashem has tremendous Rachamim. There are different Rachamim that there are. There are Rachamim Pshutim, ordinary compassion, and Rachamim Gdolim. Remember we spoke about this? This was our Vodah from the book of The Secret of Miraculous Salvation. We're in day 4 and book number 1. And he says in last week, actually she says, it's a lady who wrote it. She says here, anybody who has compassion for others, he gets compassion from above, from heaven, right? From Hashem. And when is this compassion awakened? When the midah of din comes forth and then a conflict ensues if a person is truly worthy of the rachamim. Did he believe in Hashem in that time of conflict? And if he's worthy, right, then the midah of rachamim overcomes the midah of din, of judgment. And then if that person's not worthy, then the midah of judgment prevails, right? And what's rachamim gdolim? So rachamim gdolim is referred to in Hashem's prayer. In Hashem's prayer it's called rachamim gdolim. Why? The Zohar tells us that rachamim gdolim come from a very elevated and holy place in Shamayim. That's why they're called Rachamim Gdolim. And a person, I'm just going to skip because we did this last week, I want to read this week's Avodah, is how does a person achieve this? How are we Zochet to Rachamim Gdolim? That when a person witnesses great spiritual and material salvations in his life, every Yeshua which he desires will be overturned for good, and his sins cannot withhold this type of Rachmanut. So how can this be? How can it be done? What we spoke about before. Recognizing the goodness of Hashem. This alone is an atonement for a person's sin. Imagine if you just see that this is for the good, that this is from Hashem, and this is for my good. You are awakening the Rachamim Gdolim, the great mercy, compassion of Hashem in heaven. And through this, Hashem is going to have compassion on you and grant you so many yeshuot. So the idea for practice last week was to say to yourself, to picture yourself as if Hashem is telling you, I'm yearning to conduct myself with you with my rachamim gdolim. Now, how many people did this stuff with them? It's okay, it's not a test. But we should try to think about it. When something happens, Hashem, I know that you're doing this to give me rachamim gdolim. So in this week, we're going to be working on day number 5, how to be zochet to the treasure of rachamim gdolim. So how are we zochet through to this? We learned through opening the gates of rachamim gdolim that we're granted boundless brachot and yeshuot, even if we're not worthy according to our deeds to receive so much good. So how do we arouse the opening of these gates to receive these salvations? We have to do something on this world which will stimulate such a profound effect in Shamayim. What do we need to do? We need to strengthen ourselves and contemplate thoughts of... Come on, ladies. What are we learning? Emuna. It's not a hard question. It's not a trick question. I'm not tricking you. Emuna, we have to contemplate thoughts of Emuna, that our loving Father strives to shower upon us from His treasure of boundless compassion. Just like a father yearns to grant his child all the goodness in the world, even if he's not worthy, right? A father cares for his son. So we need to fill our entire mind with the thoughts of Emunah until it becomes, like we said today, look how it's so appropriate to what we just learned, until it becomes ingrained in our brain that only Hashem, the Baal Rachamim, can and yearns to grant us immeasurable goodness. En od milvado is none other than Him. And then our mind will send out these thoughts of Emunah to our heart. Through this, we will create within ourselves an offspring of Emunah, which is called bitachon. Bitachon is a higher level of Emunah. And I think we spoke about this at the beginning, that bitachon and Emunah are synonymous. But here he's carrying it to the next level, that it's even a higher level of Emunah. When the Emunah becomes a natural feeling and a part of an inner core. So Botech B'Hashem is somebody who puts his complete trust in Hashem because Emunah is so much ingrained and a part of him. There were many instances throughout the history of Klal Yisrael when the Rachamim Gdolim aroused supernatural Yeshuot for the Yidden, even if they didn't deserve to receive so much good. And not even one prophet was able to find enough zchuyot for them. And this is what Hashem prays for, that we should learn how to awaken the opening of the gates of Rachamim Gdolim, where not even one mekatreg, one accusing attorney, has any power there. How can this Rachamim be revealed even before the coming of Mashiach? Through strengthening our minds with thoughts of Emunah, until it flows over to our hearts. Look what we said today. V'shinantam levanecha, v'samtam tadabrim ha'ele al levavecha, right? You should put it on your heart until they overflow over into our hearts and feelings of bitachon become ingrained in our essence. I promise that I didn't plan this, that it should be, coinciding. It happens just to be, Baruch Hashem, that happens. You know that mikre in Hebrew is coincidence, right? There's no really word in the Torah for coincidence. Because we look at the letters of mikre, like the word kara, right, happen. If you change the letters around, it's rak, resh kuf, me, Hashem, mem he. Right? Same letters as the mikre. Mem, kuf, resh, he. You turn them around, it's rak, me Hashem. Only from Hashem. There's no coinkydink. There's no coincidence in this world. I used to call that, my little I used to say coinkydink. There's no coincidence. And actually, can I have a pen? I remember somebody telling this to me. Let's see if I remember it. In the word coincidence, I don't know if this is related, it's inside. Inside. And then, no, I don't know what it's related to. But, I don't know, there's something that even the word coincidence, maybe incidents, like something like that, I don't know. There was something that somebody told me that even in the word coincidence, we see that there's a Hashem. So let's finish up. The Orach Chaim explains that we need to get to the level of Emunah, that all our veins and our limbs and our whole essence believes and feels that only good will happen to us. even if we are not worthy enough according to our deeds. Only good is going to happen to us, ladies. We have to think this and we have to say this. Through this, we will open the gates of Rachamim Gdolim and arouse immeasurable brachot and yeshuot for ourselves. So here's an idea for practice for the week. Homework for the week, ladies. You're getting tested next week. The only test is if you remember it. That's the only test. I ingrain in my mind and heart that Hashem's essence is rachmanut, compassion, and I live with this understanding throughout the day. When I am in need of Hashem's help, which is relevant throughout the day, we always need Hashem's help, I remind myself that Hashem, with His great compassion, yearns to grant me everything that I need. Hashem really wants to give us everything that we want. It's just a matter of the time for it. And actually relates to what Rabbi David Ashir was saying this week. He mentioned about the parsha. This last week's parasha is about Rivka and Yitzchak, right? And then they have their children, Yaakov and Esav. But Rivka and Yitzchak daven. It says that they were daven. She was davening lenochach, opposite him, right? He was a ben tzaddik and she was a bat rasha, and he was answered first, right? Because he had yichus, he had lineage. But nonetheless, it says that they davened, that they asked Hashem and they beseeched Hashem. We know that all the imahot and the avot did not have children and were not able to have children for a while. And they had to daven and daven and daven. But they believed in their davening and they didn't stop davening and they weren't mityaesh. And Rav David Asher says, a person is never allowed to be mityaesh, have despair. En yi'ush ba'olam, Rabbi Nachman Breslov says, En yi'ush ba'olam, there's no despair in this world. Person has to believe that everything is letova. And whatever Hashem wants is really for our good. We don't always see it's for our good. So I gave somebody a bracha recently. I said that Hashem should answer all your tefillot letova, and you should see that it's letova, because we don't always see it, right? But we also said in our other classes that we have to put on different kinds of glasses to be able to see it. We have to train ourselves to believe it, and we have to train ourselves to try to see the good in every situation. And it's so hard to do, right? Very hard to do. Very hard when we're going through difficulties and challenge, and whether it's helping a child or going through crisis, whether it's part of our health, to be able to see the good in it. But, there is good, and we don't understand it. There's sometimes when the family goes to tragedy, there's so much strength that they gain just by helping each other and being a support to each other. My friend just told me that, her family's going through a lot of issues with health. Different people have issues with health, and they now made a teleconference together that they say Tehillim together as a family, even though they're scattered around all across the states, They say Tehillim together. She tells them what's going on with, the sick, there's a grandmother that's sick. But this brought them together. Like they were all, everybody's busy with their lives, doing their things, and now they say Tehillim together, and they're learning together. And how many different organizations were started by people who, had children who were sick, right? And they started an organization, to help the, needy families or children who were sick also, to be able to give support. There's so many people that go through difficulties, and we see that from that comes strength. So we may not see it now, and there are challenging times that we go through, and there are challenging moments that Hashem puts us through, but it's in order for us to be able to grow. Because what is the word nisayon? Nisayon is a test, right? Nisayon has the word nes in it. So this is a Chodesh of Nisim, right? Chodesh Kislev, Chodesh of Nisim. Oh, I have to tell them what I said on Rosh Chodesh. So Chodesh Nisim, of miracles, right? So Nisayon has the word nes in it, miracle. And nes is also a banner, a flag. When do we wave a flag? When we want to show something to everyone up high, right? Like in the Olympics, right? They go and they wave the flag. Everyone should see this is the country that's now is represented, right? So we wave our flag when we go through challenge and difficulty. Hashem wants us to grow from it, to be able to wave our flag and say, wow, look what Hashem did for me. That's what Hashem wants us to do, a nisayon, and we see that from Avram Avinu. He went through 10 tests. The last test was to give up his child, who he wanted so badly for so many years, to bring him up as a korban, as a sacrifice. He even wanted to just take a little bit of blood out, just a little bit, because maybe that's what Hashem really wants. But really what Hashem told him is stop. Because what he wanted was to do the Ratzon Hashem. And he was on automatic pilot to go and do and do and do and do and just do for Hashem. Hashem said, don't go on automatic pilot, go on manual now. Manual is put the knife down and just trust in me. That's what Hashem wanted. And that was also a test for Avraham. But he passed that test. And because Avraham Avinu passed his test, he gave us, I remember hearing this in seminary, my Rabbi, it's important to say a person you heard some Torah from, right? It says when you say Divrei Torah and you mention the person, you're bringing closer the Geula. That you're really bringing the Mashiach closer. Because you're mentioning Torah in the name of somebody, you're showing how that person is important. You're being Mekarev, you're bringing things closer, right? Bringing people closer. So my Rabbi Elbaum, not Olbaum, Elbaum, from Brooklyn, he was my Rav in Breuer's, and he said that when Avram Avinu went through his 10 tests, I'm sure he brought sources, I don't remember the sources, that he gave us, Avram Avinu gave us the wherewithal, the ability to overcome any test. That's why we're reading the Parashiot now. We read it every single year, again and again, right? Bereshit, Noach, Lech Lecha V'Yera, right? We continue all the Parashiot again and again. Why? Because those tests that our Avot and our Imahot went through gave us the ability to overcome any challenge. If they had the ability to overcome it, we come from them. They left the seeds of and the strength, right, to be able. They implanted the seeds to be able for us to grow from it, to be able for us to be able to take it and to Bezrat Hashem grow from it and learn from it and become stronger from it. And that's why we're learning these parashiot. When you hear the parsha, it's not just to hear it. It's to be able to be ingrained in us. It's to be able to realize that we have these kochot. And Bezrat Hashem, Hashem should give us the ability to grow from our challenges, to see how they're for our good, and to really, really say and believe and be ingrained in our heart that it's from Rachamim of Hashem, that Ein Od Milvado. I believe in Hashem. I trust in Hashem. And now I would like you to say that to yourselves, because when you're saying this to yourself, you're thinking about it, and it becomes a part of you, and then you're going to be living it, Bezrat Hashem. So I wanted to say one more story, but the hour is late. So I want to thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
And I hope, Bezrat Hashem, that you'll be able to see, yes, no, we're going to meet next week, just not on Sunday.
Oh.
Okay.
Be sure to leave your number or your email address.
Yeah, I would like to pass
WhatsApp,
around,
so she can let
if
you
there's
know.
anybody
Yeah.
that didn't,
Okay,
I'm just
sign
going to
up.
pass around a piece of paper if you could just sign in. But I wish you all bracha, that you should be able to see the good and the rachamim of Hashem, and be able to have the Emuna ingrained in you. B'ezrat Hashem. So I actually have something to give everybody that's here. Please don't leave yet.
Here, Rhonda, you
I
can
really
shut
wanted
this
to
off.
give it
I don't know how to
my
shut it.
first cup of shuvah.
Well, turn it on. I don't know.
Hope you pass it around. Everyone write their name. I just want to know who was here.
Okay.
I'm gonna donate a clipboard for you.